Let's start. Buenas tardes y bienvenidas a todas y todos a este seminario, pues tan especial que va a ser un poco diferente a nuestras habituales mesas de diálogo. Como ya sabéis, el encuentro de hoy está centrado en dar respuesta a la falta de recursos con que profesorado y alumnado deben lidiar en la cotidianidad de la enseñanza, en la investigación y el aprendizaje. Además, me complace presentaros a nuestras tres invitadas que han aceptado compartir hoy su sabiduría con nosotras: Gabriela Di Laccio, Silke Wenzel y Shakira Ventura. Como ya sabéis, dado el carácter internacional del encuentro, pues este seminario se va a desarrollar en inglés y español. Cada participante contará con 30 minutos para exponer las características del proyecto en el que colabora y tras cada intervención abriremos un pequeño turno de preguntas en el que podréis formular vuestras dudas, resolver inquietudes y pues añadir vuestros propios comentarios. Aquellas personas que no se sientan cómodas en inglés pueden formular sus preguntas en español y se las traduciremos a las ponentes. Y en el chat de la reunión podéis descargaros los dosieres informativos tanto en español como en inglés, que os iré adjuntando a lo largo de la sesión. El orden de intervención será en primer lugar para Gabriela, que nos hablará del proyecto DONE, Women in Music, del que es fundadora y curadora desde el año 92. Y después tendremos en segundo lugar a Silke Wenzel, que nos hablará del proyecto MUGI, Música and Gender in Internet, del cual es curadora y documentalista. Y finalmente tendremos a Shakira Ventura, que nos va a contar su experiencia en la gestión del mapa de creadoras de la música, del que es asimismo fundadora y curadora, además de pionera en el terreno español. Cuando contacté con las invitadas, les pedí que abordasen en sus presentaciones aspectos como pues la historia del proyecto, su proceso de trabajo, el apoyo institucional, es decir, cómo sobrevive económicamente el proyecto, si es que cuentan con algún tipo de apoyo, y qué curiosidades que habían aprendido ellas en la gestión a lo largo de la gestión del mismo. Y antes de introducir la sesión en inglés, me gustaría remitirme a la maestra Susan McClary, quien en uno de sus múltiples análisis acerca de la música y su poder en la configuración de la sociedad comentaba: así es como funciona siempre la cultura, siempre basada en códigos y contratos sociales, siempre abierta a fusiones, ampliaciones y transformaciones. Para mí, la música nunca parece tan trivial como en sus lecturas puramente musicales. Good afternoon and welcome to everyone to this very special seminar that is going to be a little different from our usual roundtables. As you already know, today's meeting is focused on responding to the lack of resources with which teachers and students must deal in the daily life of teaching, research and learning. I am also pleased to introduce you to our three guests who have agreed to share their wisdom with us today: Gabriela Di Laccio, Silke Wenzel and Shakira Ventura. As you already know, given the international nature of the meeting, the seminar will be held in English and Spanish. Each participant will have 30 minutes to present the characteristics of the project in which they collaborate, and after each intervention, we will open a short question and debate session in which you can formulate your doubts, resolve your concern, and add your own comments. Those who are not comfortable with English or Spanish can ask their question in both languages and we'll translate them for the speakers. In the meeting chat, you can download informative dossiers in both Spanish and English. Although this is not the case, we continue passing through and passing on the same discourse that, like a hammer on the wall, not only does not include the other half of the history of music, but also denies it. Musical genres, forms, or styles are presented to us from a patriarchal point of view. Music is what it is, and its forms, meanings are what they are, because this is reflected in the small range of specimens on which we base these conclusions. Despite being aware that we inhabit this sonic environment, if it was Plato's cave, we continue looking at the shadows projected on the wall by the official discourse. But what if instead of jumping from snatch to snatch of that broken line that is the history of music, we stop at the gaps? Those holes in black that seem to say nothing and that cannot be so full of content. Perhaps then we would discover that if today we do not include women in syllabus we teach, if our students do not have female references, it is not because they do not exist, neither because they have not investigated, but because there is a deep disconnection between the project that from musicology are in charge of promoting female historiography and what happens in the classrooms. Turning our ears or eyes on those spaces and silences, this seminar aims to connect three projects from three different countries: United Kingdom, Germany, and Spain, with the classrooms and with those who inhabit them. The participants, all women, will explain to us what their work consists of as reactivators of the musical legacies written and performed by women. All of them have a strong commitment with the promotion of the biographies and musical works of those composers of whom we continue without hearing anything neither in classes nor in concert halls. For this reason, they will make their initiatives available to us as an educational resource and a methodological tool. At the same time, they will delve into the sources, those that concern us so much, to affirm that despite all the difficulties, women have always remained active in the musical field. What is more, they end up making from an artistic practice a constant act of disobedience. In addition, they will tell us about their experience when asking for institutional support for their projects. This will allow us not only to compare the investment of each country in gender studies, but also to know some of the reasons why this arena is still occupied by discomfort. The order of intervention will be first for Gabriela, who will tell us about the project Donne Women in Music, of which she has been the founder and curator since 1992. Secondly, we'll have Silke Wenzel, who will talk about the project Boogie, Music and Gender in Internet, of which she's curator and documentary. And finally, we will have Shakira Ventura, who will tell us about her experience in managing the map of music of creators, which she's also the founder and curator, as well as a pioneer in the Spanish field. When I contacted the guests, I asked them to address aspects such as the history of the project, the working process, and the institutional support they receive, if they receive any support. And I want them to tell us some curiosities about what they have learned. But before handing over to the speakers, I would like to refer to Susan McClary, who in one of her many analyses about music and its power in shaping society, she argued, culture always works, always grounded in codes and social contract, always open to fusions, extensions, and transformations. To me, music seems so trivial as in its purely musical readings. Thank you. And Gabriela, when you want, is your turn.
Thank you, Elsa. Hola, hola a todos. Yo dije que yo hablo portuñol, pero no voy a hablar portuñol, voy a hablar inglés. Good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here. I have seen Silke and Shakira via social media, and I've been following them for a long time. So it's very nice to actually see them live. Hello. I wish, Elsa, I had started Donne in 1992, although I don't think I was at university yet, but anyway, but sadly it was only 2018, but but I wish, because today one of the sad things for me is like, why didn't I discover all this before? So before I will show you more about Donne. But before, I thought I would tell you all why I decided to start this project. Because different from majority of the people here, I'm not an academic. This is not my life. I have great admiration, and I always feel surprised and a little bit out of place when I'm amongst people like yourselves, because I have amazing admiration for you all. But my life in music has always been as a performer. And I always liked to share live music with people and to bring music to people. I've been doing a lot of talks this month about this story, and I have a prop that I like to bring, which is a picture of me. This is me. I am originally from Brazil, and when I was this age, not much long after that, I was dreaming of becoming a classical singer. I don't know why. I have no musicians in my family. Absolutely no idea what it came from, but I don't think this is a surprise for anyone who wants to be a musician or wants to follow a career in music, which is this art that moves us so deeply. And nobody wants to be a classical musician to be on X Factor or to be famous. We do it because we love, and we all have our reasons. And I wanted to become a classical singer. In the south of Brazil, where I was living, I can promise you there was nothing more absurd in my life, right? But I had two wonderful things going in my favor. I was Brazilian, which means I grew up in a country that sees diversity and also see people fighting for things all the time. So that taught me from a very young age that it's okay to fight for your dreams and it's okay to fail, because that's how it is. And it's a learning that really helped me as a musician. As you probably know, we fall many times and we have to get up again. And I had another wonderful thing in my life, which was my mother, because my mother, although we had no financial ways to support my dreams, she was always encouraging me. And she was always telling me, oh, you know, so many people, they had to put up with adversities in their lives. For example, Beethoven, you know, he was deaf, or Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb. So he was told he was never going to do anything good by his teachers, or Henry Ford, who filed for bankruptcy. Anyway, so she kept giving me all these stories of these amazing men who have accomplished so much. And then that really encouraged me to continue to dream. And so I continued to dream. And then I was always very, very, very good student. I knew that if I ever wanted to become a singer professionally, I had to work really hard and become the best singer I could be. And so I did. I worked really hard, and step by step, lots of steps, I ended up here in London with a scholarship to study at the Royal College of Music. And it was an amazing time. You know, so wonderful to be here to develop my learning, to learn more. But of course, there was a lot of catching up to do, because, you know, still all the learning I had in Brazil, you couldn't compare with all the experience people have here. You know, they start having music lessons from a very young age. I had to adapt to a completely new culture. I kissed all my teachers on my first day at the Royal College of Music. Can you believe it? Oh, hi. We should do being Brazilian. Anyway, I had to find money to do my work, my student visas. You know, I had serious moments when I was feeling I didn't belong here. I've always been very different from all the European singers. But anyway, I made it to this day, and to be very honest with you, I feel so privileged to do what I do, because there's no better feeling than doing something you love. And every time I go on stage, I feel like it's a privilege, and it's a gift, and it's a moment that I want to make special for people. But then, and I thought, you know, I was happy as an artist. I found my voice. It took lots of years, my artistic voice, to accept myself. But then in 2014, I was doing lots of concerts, or I was asked to perform in many concerts with works by Shakespeare. So songs that had words by Shakespeare, because 2015 was the 500th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. And I started researching early because I wanted to choose good pieces. And I ended up finding many songs by women composers. And okay, so I am a soprano. My specialty is Baroque music, and I do light opera and contemporary music, because my voice is very light. So I've been used to research repertoire, being an early music performer. And then suddenly I started seeing these names of these women, and I was, hold on a minute, I don't know this one. And so I started making notes on my phone, on a little notebook. When I had time, I will research a bit more. And I kept discovering more and more. So at some point, I think it was 2016, I was walking in those secondhand shops in London, and you have a lot for books. And I came across this book. Well, it's not a book, it's two books. It's like two Bibles. and it was called the International Encyclopedia of Women Composers. And I go, wow. So I got it and I took it home. And I'm sure you all know, but for me it was a surprise. I told you I was never an academic. This book by Aaron Cohen, done in the 80s, listed 6,000 women composers from pre-medieval times to 1980s. 6,000 women. It wasn't 60, it wasn't 600, it was 6,000. So I was shocked, I was embarrassed, I was extremely ashamed. I thought, oh my God, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anyone that you are an ignorant musician. Don't tell your colleagues about this because you missed a lecture. What happened? And then I decided no. But 6,000, it must be just a list. And I'm very ashamed to say, but it was true. My second thought was, I bet this is just a long list. It doesn't mean these women are good. It doesn't mean their music was good. So I went, okay, I'm going to do my homework. And how wrong I was, because you start discovering this music, and it's not only the music, it's the stories that come with each one of them. And it's like a Pandora box that never ends. So I was really shocked. And then I started little by little asking my colleagues, if I was in a rehearsal, if I met a conductor, and I was like, did you know about this and this? And I, no. And then I started to realize, what's happening? Why nobody knows about this? So is everybody ignorant? In a way, I felt a bit better because I wasn't the only one. But, I was I was trying to find a reason. So I thought, well, is this music impossible to find? No, it's not impossible to find. And then the more you look, the more you find out that are people, musicologists and academics, doing this since the 70s. If you dig a little bit, you don't have to look. It's not a long search. It's a superficial search. You start finding things. And then I went, why isn't everybody talking about this? I was studying in one of the best institutions in the world, and I didn't come across 1% of the names in this book. Then I went into this cycle of anger, shame, anger, shame, anger, shame. So I was super angry at myself for not noticing this before. I was ashamed again, because I've been going to concerts all my life, and I love music. I have a great respect for this art, and I've been seeing concert programs in front of me, and I never questioned. Even this being my life, something I love and adore and respect. And that scared me, because if somebody that had so much respect was not listening or was not knowing about this, how is this possible? So then I came to a point where I had to make a decision, because my husband, he couldn't take it anymore. Every breakfast, I was just so angry, and I was just telling him, but did you know? And I was discovering all these stories and the music, and I was playing. And then I said, just ranting to my husband every morning at breakfast is not going to help anyone. And so I need to do something. So, and all this time, one of the things that made me really sad was why I was not hearing the stories of these women from my mother. Why my teachers were not sharing this with us? Because forget about music for a moment. The stories of these women, any person who any time in your life you received a no, you were told you couldn't do something, they proved everybody wrong, and we should be learning about them. So on International Women's Day 2018, it took a long time of planning, of deciding what to do. I tried many different things, and eventually I got small funding to record 5 CDs featuring music by women. And I thought, just record, not myself only, but with 5 different artists, 5 different repertoires. And I thought, just recording CDs is not going to be enough. I want to find a way to bring the stories of these women in my own way, because I didn't want to fight or even try to do a musicological approach. I wanted this little website which I created to reach out to any person, because I knew there are people much more capable than me to do research and do academic works. And I wanted Donne to be a way for any person to engage with this story. So on that morning of 2018, I launched the website, which I designed myself with my very limited skills. It's not the one you see now today. This is an upgrade. And it had the 5 CDs, a few interviews, and what I called the big list. And the big list of women composers was my way of taking the women from this paper and put them in an organized way in this website. I didn't find information for all of them online. So I remember I could only list 4,000 of them. And a few months later, because I was still curious to find out why is this music not being played, I researched 15 orchestras worldwide. And I did a little research to see how much of this music they were playing. And the results were horrible, not surprising. I think less than 2% was the result. And we are talking the Berlin Philharmonic, you know, all the top orchestras in the world. Because of this research, the project went to The Guardian, because The Guardian picked up the research and published. And in a couple of days after that, I started receiving emails from women from all over the world saying, thank you, or can you add me to your list? I am a composer. I'm sending you a one-woman clapping ovation from Australia, from US, from Cuba. And I went, what? It's not my list. Is anything? It's your list. Yeah, of course I will add your name. The rest is actually history. I can't believe it's been 3 years now. And I don't know, many people know, but since that day one, I've been the sole person driving Donne. We had a few moments when he got funding to do particular things, like the new website last year, for example, but this is never regular. And I have replied emails from rehearsals. I have designed Instagram posts in hotel rooms. I posted blog posts in airport lounges and things like that. And there are days when it's really hard because, you know, I feel the sense of commitment to all these women now who find a place where they can see themselves, and for other women who can see them to get inspired, and there's no way out of it. And then, and I have to go back then to the beginning of my talk, I remember really clearly why I'm doing this, because this why I am doing this, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you who do this project, I'm sure it changes, it develops with time. And this why is very strong for me now, and it keeps me going, and it gives me a very strong sense of urgency and not a lot of patience for anyone who is very slow in catching up and finally reaching out to equality. Because do you remember this girl? Now, imagine if she was Black. Imagine if she had a disability. Imagine she didn't have supportive parents. Imagine she was abused. And then it becomes very clear to me that I don't share music by women or stories by women to change the music industry only. And I know we all do it the same. We do it because we all want to be relevant more than ever now. on and off stage or in class and outside the classroom. We do it with music, or I do it with music, because music is my life and is my language through people. But for me, Donne has always been more than a musical project. It's a way of creating a small difference, a disruption, a positive disruption in the world, so we can contribute to a better society, a society that we really need. Because this is not, and that's why I say I don't have patience, because if anybody questions me, oh, why do we have to include music by women? Or why do we have to include music by diverse composers? So look around yourself, and then we have to ask, is this going to make a difference? Yes, it will make a difference. Adding music by women to a program, it will make a difference. Adding music by Black composers to a concert, it will make a difference. And we have to believe that, because this is what we need. We all need to do something every day now. And I feel very strongly about this, because it doesn't mean all of you have to start an enterprise like Donne or like Sakira or like Silke, you know, because we can all do much more than we think. But if you are a performer, a young musician, you have to start working right now in research and find a few pieces by women, by Black composers, by Indigenous composers to add to your concert program, because you will be showing the audience anywhere you go that anyone can become what many people dream of becoming, but sometimes don't see themselves doing. So you have a job as a performer to do that. As an organization, more than anyone else, as a radio station, as you know, even as a public, you can write to your favorite orchestra, you can write to your favorite station, you can ask them to play the music, you can donate money for an association that is doing good work. And I don't say this to promote myself, or but you know, pick one. Help somebody who's already doing something. You don't need to start yourself. The bottom line for me is like, I don't find it's enough for all of us to say, oh, we are pro-equality, oh, I'm feminist, oh, I'm against racism. Or if we are not doing something every day to contribute for change, we are part of the problem nowadays in every industry. And we, as musicians, as teachers, as people who live through music, we have a wonderful chance to do that via sharing music. For me, every song I sing comes now with almost like 1,000 voices behind, and I can't imagine a better way to make change. And that's the story of Donne. And if I may now, I would like to show you a little bit more about the website and everything you can find there. Can I just share my screen, Elsa?
Yes, I think you shouldn't have any problem. So, because okay. I'm not sharing now, so
I'm not finding the, oh, there, sorry. Okay, here we go. Can you all see?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. As I said, this is not my design. This is something that finally now last year in the middle of the pandemic, the UK offered an emergency funding for some people. And I asked, the first thing I wanted was a new website. So I got some funding to have this new website, which very soon will be in Spanish as well. I'm not going to show everything here. You have information about since last November, we became a charitable foundation, which is wonderful, a great achievement, because it makes a bit easier to try to get funding. Just now on International Women's Day, we got 19 artists from all over the world who are going to be our ambassadors, and they are musicians, conductors, there is a choir from different countries, and I really hope this will help us not only to project the stories, but there's so much we need to learn when it comes to inclusion and how to include people properly. So how to include Black composer, how to include trans composer, how to include LGBTQ composers is a huge education for me as well. So I hope this will be amazing. Okay, here on projects we love, I really recommend you all come here, because here we list many other projects all over the world who are doing amazing things, right? When I have more time, I will organize this better, but I would just recommend you just click all of them, because you will find different things. Some of them have repertoire, some of them are just concerts, some of them are yourselves. That's Akira here. Don't have to see that. Here explains what we do. Okay, so then we are going to go to the big list, which is the heart of this project. The big list is what it is the big list of women composers. I recommend you click on search, and here you can search by name if you know who you're searching, or you can search by period, and then you can search by musical genre, by country of birth, country of location. I'm just gonna unclick this. You can search by BAME. BAME, there are Black, Asians, and minority ethnical composers, and LGBTQ. So at the moment, we have just over 5,000 composers on the big list. Then you have the multimedia. So the multimedia, I will show in a minute. Let's go to the research. And here we are currently doing a new research. And this is the initial research I told you that was the shocking one. As you can see, it was, it was just 15 orchestras, but the the results were really bad. And they are actually amazing orchestras that could actually be portraying so much more, and here you find research for many other people as well that is always very, very relevant. And then we have our events, which we are doing more and more now online. Tomorrow we have one about women in the Holocaust. In April we have one with a great educator here talking about Black female composers, and you can come back, they're all free. Here we have our CD collection. Those are the CDs that we recorded as part of the beginning of the project. This artist who does all the art, she's a Spanish artist, Isabel Chiara. She lives in Sevilla. She's been a great partner since day one. She created this beautiful woman with all the eyes of composers for free to start this project. I really recommend you check her work. So on playlist, on videos, we have short animations of only 6 so far, historical composers done by Isabel as well. And they're really nice. They're 4 minutes roughly, and it's a good way to introduce to a young class or something, because it's just a few informations about the composer just to keep them curious. And here we have some interviews with living composers. And here I really recommend our playlists. I'm always updating them, and I'm always trying to separate them by genre. Here, Black women's, video game music, like international women, women in jazz, art songs, orchestral, film. This was for Christmas, guitar, choral music, opera, string trios, string quartets, cello, violin, musicals. And then we have specially curated playlists. This is a very famous journalist in the UK, the Classical Music Magazine. They did their own curation of, this is probably Australians. This is a conductor from Israel. This is a conductor from America. And, some of them are very particular taste for each, but I really recommend, especially if you're looking for something either for piano solo or voice, or your piano and violin, and you can send more suggestions as well. I will try to keep adding more and more. I started a podcast as well. I recommend all the conversations because I learned in each one of them. Deborah Cheatham, she's an Australian composer. She's a daughter of Indigenous mother. She was taken from her family and given to a white family and lied that her mother was dead. Anyway, the stories of, it's amazing. Rob Dimmer, you probably know of him. He has a fantastic project in New York, a list where you can search as well for diverse composers. Vicky Bain has another project here in the UK for female. Amanda Cooks did a editor of I Care If You Listen magazine in New York. Mayan Chen is a very inspirational conductor. Yeah, I recommend, not because of the conversation, but these people. Imar Noon is the conductor of the Oscars. They're very generous in sharing their information with me. Our blog. Now, this blog used to be a birthday blog for composers. For 2 years, every day I posted 2 composers with a one song so people could know that composer. I am reviewing this right now because, especially because more and more we have to be fair and not only promote white women. And because of whatever was available, and it wasn't really a lot of diversity every day. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I am planning how to do the birthdays in a more fair way instead of picking 2, because I don't think it's fair. And I think, but I haven't finished yet. So when it's ready, you will all see here, but you can see many things on the blog. What else? Right. You can support us if you want. Most importantly, if you know any companies that can support us, you can always recommend they come here. I'm not going to ask for money here because I know everybody is doing exactly the same. If you are watching this afterwards and you are an organization that wants to join this amazing idea that to bring inspiration and for the future generations to have a more equal world, not only in music, but in general, get in touch. And I think I'm done, unless you have questions, and I will stop sharing now.
So thanks, Gabriela, because you sound so inspiring when you speak, and I think you encourage people to just not look, but do something active in an active way. I think activism now is the answer to this inequality we are living, and in this point and in the world we are living now with the pandemic and all the stuff, we should be, or we must be stronger. So just to fight and just making to achieve equality. I don't know if there is any question among the public. If not, remember, you can open your microphones if you want to ask, or you can just write through the chat. But if there isn't any question, I have some questions for you, and maybe people then can encourage to make their own questions. I would like to know how often do you update the content of the web, because I think there is maybe for all of you, Sakira and Silke also, to be updated is very important in your work and in the content you offer, because you manage playlist, the entrance from the dictionary and all the stuff. And how often do you update the content? Because I think it's quite interesting as long as you are making by yourself.
Yes, I think the content that actually I have to share really quickly, because I forgot to show composers. If you are a composer, most important part, if you are a composer and you want to join the big list, right? So you just come here, big list, join the big list, and then this form, which is in Portuguese and English, but it's quite easy to find. And then you just can submit your details here, right? So I'll stop sharing now. So because of this, the content, you know, I'm adding composers every week. You know, depends how many. Every talk I do now in March, you have new people coming, which is great, because that's at the beginning I inputted all the names, some from the Encyclopedia, some from other projects like the New York project, asking for permission, of course, because there were databases already out there done. And now I actually haven't really compared, because we are almost one of the biggest ones only for women. Of course, you have the ones that have diverse composers, of course, are bigger than this one, but dedicated to women, one of the biggest. And I'm actually encouraging women to sign in by themselves, because I think it would be much better if they can describe and put their little bio the way they prefer. So the big list updated every week. The blog, I am trying to post 3 times a week. To be very honest with you, March has been extremely busy for me, and I have not been able to do as much as I would like. And I had to forgive myself for that, because I was very stressed trying to just come up with things, and I just eventually just, please women, all forgive me. But it's all for a good cause, because instead of posting, I am actually talking to all of you and asking for a connection in a different way. The playlists, again, I'm always adding things to the playlist, because the playlists are not only on our website, but they are they are just a mirror of our YouTube channel. It's just a plugin that mirrors our YouTube. So every new song I learn, I just go, which playlist this one goes to here, and I add there, and which is super easy. And you're discovering new music daily, honestly. So it's a, and did I answer? Pretty much, I think.
Sure, yeah, sure. And another thing that made me think a lot, because I think it's a shared feeling, is you speak about angry and shame, and it's something I feel really. I think among all it was shame, because I when I started this kind of roundtables and seminars, I thought how badly I was making my job, because I was teaching students without mention any women, so they don't have any references, although I'm a woman. So I just live in the oblivion. I was educated, and I continued with this kind of discourse. And I wanted to ask to Shakira and Silke, when they face this reality, if they feel the same, or if they had this kind of feeling about angry or shame, or how they face the day by day when talking about this kind of things.
I think they're probably going to say the same. It's impossible not to be embarrassed, and it's impossible not to be angry. I think I will stop talking in a minute, but I go.
Silke, you want, or Shakira, do you want to add something?
Bueno, lo primero, antes de nada, agradecer a Gabriela no solo la explicación que nos acaba de dar, sino todo tu trabajo, tu generosidad. Constantemente me declaro fan absoluta de tu trabajo, y solo una cosita que antes de contestar, que en un momento de tu intervención has dicho que solo eres una intérprete, que tu trabajo igual no es comparable al de alguna musicóloga, ¿no?, que se dedica a la investigación. Solo decirte que ojalá más musicólogas, sobre todo de las nuevas generaciones, hicieran trabajos tan exhaustivos como el que tú haces, porque entonces no habría tantos problemas ni existiría tanta desigualdad como la que existe a día de hoy. Así que por ese lado, muchísimas gracias por lo que haces, porque es inspirador, de verdad.
No.
Luego, bueno, espero que me hayas entendido.
Sí, perfectamente.
Y luego, por otro lado, me enfada muchísimo cada vez que sale el tema de que, por ejemplo, por qué hace falta hacer este tipo de recursos, cualquiera de los que vamos a presentar hoy, que las cosas han cambiado muchísimo respecto a años o a décadas atrás, que por qué hace falta hacer esto. Entonces, las respuestas vienen solas cada vez que compartes una playlist de sinfonías de mujeres o un mapa solo de mujeres compositoras, y entonces aparecen siempre esas personas que dicen, bueno, pero ¿por qué no has incluido a los hombres? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Por qué haces esto? ¿No? Eso creo que es lo que peor llevo y lo que más me enfada, porque si realmente me estás haciendo esta pregunta es que no has entendido absolutamente nada. Después de vivir durante siglos, décadas, sin conocer nada de las mujeres en la música, no entiendo por qué ahora te molesta tanto que nosotras no incluyamos a los hombres en nuestros proyectos. Si antes no te has enfadado porque no estaban las mujeres, ¿por qué ahora sí que te enfadas o te molestas cuando no incluimos a los hombres? Entonces, esas críticas, lo reconozco, me enfadan muchísimo, es lo que peor llevo de este proyecto. Hay que desarrollar la paciencia. Creo que nunca en mi vida he tenido tanta paciencia como desde que lancé el mapa. Pero bueno, cuanto más se molesten, es que mejor estamos haciendo las cosas. Así que hay que seguir, por supuesto.
Silke, do you want to add something to this feeling of shame or anger? Have you ever experienced this kind of feelings when facing your work at movie?
Yes, I think so. I'm always a little bit helpless when I'm talking or I'm teaching at a university of music. So I'm surrounded by musicians who are doing the classical, romantical repertoire all days long, and who need it, for example, to get a place in an orchestra. They don't need compositions of women's, but they need Mozart, they need Beethoven, they need Brahms. And that's what is taught all day long. And that's for me very, yes, I'm feeling helpless around that, because it's such a pressure of the classical market probably, and the classical farm in which those students will get along one day. And there is nearly no place for women composers, for women musicians, and that's really I really feel helpless sometimes. For the students today, I think it's just around 2 years. All the questions of women composers, of diversity, is coming back to students. So there are a lot of students who ask me today to do a seminar about the beginning of women composers, about the beginning of female research. And that's interesting. It's always, for 10 years, no one wanted to hear anything about women composers. And I think now it's really coming back.
Yeah, and to finish just with Gabriela and then starting with you, Silke, but I have one reflection more, and I think you speak about the problems. You say you ask for pardon because March was a very complicated month when making updates in your work, and don't you have the feeling that women composers and women in general are only remembering March, and what happened the rest of the year is like when we talk about women composers in the case of music, it's only about this International Women's Day, but it seems like it's like an euphoria. Everyone speak about women composers, and everyone wants to make concerts about women, or with songs or pieces, musical works composed by women, performed by women, and then the next day is all the same. So how do you feel about that? Because it's kind of contradictory. It seems like, hey, my work is getting visible and I'm helping, and then the next day is all the same, and it was the 7th March or the 10th April. It's more the same. I want to know how you feel, the three of you, but starting with you, Gabriela, because you were the first.
I think the censorship will cut me here now. Right. I feel very, it took me 3 years to say this, but it's true. I hate International Women's Day now. I absolutely hate March. I think it's absurd. I think what people do is ridiculous. I received, I don't know how many invitations to watch a concert on the 8th of March. I didn't watch one of them because I said, this is absurd. Why do you have to do this? And I think it's really ridiculous. And I think not only with Women's Day, it's Black History Month, is one day to celebrate the indigenous, is one day to do this. And I think that's why now I feel really good about saying this, because I celebrate women every day of my life, through the project, through the stories I tell. My husband, as I said, my husband can't hear them anymore, and he always goes, "Oh no, what now? Another one?" But yes, another one, of course, another one. And I don't feel guilty saying this, because I think it's absurd. Yes, fine, I understand the reason why to do the day, and there is a symbol for everything, but the way people are doing now, and it's becoming worse. I don't know if you feel that each year is becoming more crowded, right? Just myself this week, and I'm really happy to be here talking. I say this because, but I'm really, really happy. I'm talking in 5 events this week. So, you know, and I go like, oh gosh, but we could have done this the whole year. So just keep doing it. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to keep doing things every day, and not only us, but and I will repeat, go back to my thing, because now the reason why I do this became very clear since last year, since everything that happened, you know, with Black Lives Matter. You know, we can't just pretend anymore that, oh, I'm gonna do equality tomorrow. It has to be every day, in every little act we do. In you know, you don't have prejudice when you choose your pieces. Then be curious. You know, think about what the audience will think when you perform that music. They're gonna be like, wow, who is this person? I tell you, not a single time I introduced a woman composer, and most of the time they are unknown, right? Because to the audience, not a single time I had a person who said, oh, that piece. On the contrary, they always come afterwards and say, amazing, I never heard of that woman, I will look her up. And you know, that's how we do. So yeah, March, please, let's just keep doing that. You know, it's like Valentine's Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Shakira, do you want to add something, and then we let the word to Silke?
Simplemente que este año ha sido terrible el 8 de marzo, porque yo he perdido la cuenta de la de universidades, conservatorios y otras instituciones que se han puesto en contacto conmigo para que participara, pues, con una charla, una presentación, una conferencia. Entonces, por un lado, vale, está bien, pero lo que sí que les he pedido a todas esas instituciones es que a partir del 9 de marzo también sigan organizando estas cosas, porque hacen falta. A mí creo que ha sido el primer año de mi vida que el 8 de marzo, soy bastante activa en redes sociales, pero el 8 de marzo no sabía qué hacer de manera especial, porque como afortunadamente lo hacemos todos los días, ese día no tenía nada diferente que ofrecer. Entonces, Nada, hay mucha hipocresía en ese día, igual que en San Valentín, e igual que en estas fechas tan señaladas. Entonces, me parece bien, vamos a celebrarlo, pero ¿qué tal si no nos olvidamos de las mujeres los otros 364 días del año?
So, es verdad. Gracias, Akira. So, Silke, do you want to add, to start with something and then start with your presentation, because it's your turn and I think you have a lot of interesting things to say about music and gender in the internet, because it's one of the pioneers projects in Europe. So we are hoping to listen to you.
Yes, we tried. I just need 1 minute afterwards to find my papers and so on. But first of all, to the Women's Day, I have to confess, I didn't know anything about the Women's Day until 4 years ago or 3 years ago. It hasn't really an importance for me. For me, it's probably because it didn't came from the feminist tradition, and I think in Germany the Women's Day wasn't as important for many years as in other countries. Mm-hmm. And I've been one day 2 years ago, I think, at the McClary in Hamburg for the Women's Day, and it was awful. And I will not try to do it once again. It's really not it's not my perspective, but even I think for the academic people it might not be as important as for other social contexts. I think for a lot of social contexts it might be really important to see one day what women's work means, what it means to change between children, between, in Germany we say children, church and kitchen. I don't know how you're telling this. And so I think there are a lot of people who really, for whom it is important. For me, it wasn't and it will not be. It's my daily work, like Gabriela and I think Sakira told it.
So you want to talk about the Muhi project? We're hearing you.
Sorry, I was so used to you that you have a minute of rest between the talks. Though I just need to take my paper. Yes, there it is. Yes, about Mugi, which is really a very long ongoing project, which started in 2001. So we will have now about 20 years of work. Not only me, I just came in about 2007, 2008 as an author, not really in the middle of the project, but as an author of a lot of women biographies. And probably I really can share or may share voila. So I've been so interested by your presentation that I just nearly forgot the mine. So here it is. You can see it quite good. Wait,
yes, we can see it.
Mm-hmm. I can probably go a little bit. There it is. Great. Yes, there it is. Mugi, as an internet portal, has all forms of female biographies all around the European context from around 1100 to today, until today. And it wants to be a female musicians encyclopedia and a gender portal. It's edited by Beatrix Beutert and Nina Nöske, which are both professors at the University of Music in Hamburg. And it has been, I told it always, under construction since 2001 and has been online since 2004. So we are in the 17th year of publication and it works until today. It serves both as a reference work and as a network platform for gender music related topics. With currently more than 540 biographical articles on female musicians, as well as several biographies on male musicians from a gender perspective, the Encyclopedia or Lexicon, which also provides several articles in English translation, I will show it later on, has become the standard reference work for this subject area. The biographies of female musicians in particular cover a wide range of topics beyond the well-known names. They are regarded as indispensable both within the academic community and by a broader public. For archives and libraries, for academic and research people, for students, musicians, journalists, and other user groups. The starting point of the project are the findings of gender studies in their special significance for two essential subdisciplines of musicology: music history, firstly, and biography. From the beginning, one of Mugi's aims was to search for other perspectives in these two areas. By understanding music primarily as a cultural activity, aspects that are only marginally considered in conventional, mostly work-related accounts come to the fore in Mugi. These include the history of interpretation and reception, the history of music education and promotion, as well as forms of musical production and communication outside the public sphere. They are all seen as parts of a much broader history of music and its communication forms. In essence, therefore, it is about the formation of new categories that do justice to the findings of women's and gender studies of recent decades. Here, for example, you can see a string quartet from 1865 in Paris, a female string quartet, who exists of Hélène Cato, Fanny Klaus, Katharina Le Bouilly, and Jenny Klaus. And you can see the violin cellist here, Hélène de Cato, and here it is, and there she is in the string quartet. To put forward female musicians is a very old tradition which begins, at my considering, at London at 1839, when there was founded the Royal Society of Female Musicians. So that's a very long time that female musicians tries to be seen in an international form or in a national form as musicians. The Royal Society of Female Musicians is very interesting because at my research and my knowledge, it's the first pension, how do you call it? Pension fund for female musicians. So it's the first association which began to accept that there are professional female musicians, not only in the drawing rooms, not only for her own delight, but really as professional musicians. And the London Society was, for my thinking, the first society who told their members that there must be a fund to finance these female musicians when they are not married, when they are alone, to give them money when they get ill, when they get old, when there is any problem in life. And that's really for me, it's the beginning of a professional scene of female musicians. It's really interesting, I think. You can see here some more of dictionaries of female musicians. Here, this one is a German one, the Michaelis or Michaelis in 1888, where he really began to collect musicians, female musicians, and to give a dictionary about their work. Very famous is Elson in 1903, I think, who also tried to research and to collect women works in music and to show them to the public in his publication about women in music. So that's the tradition of Mugi. And it's also the beginning of research to say we have such a lot of names, we have such a lot of knowledge that there was a woman, that there played a woman, that there composed a woman, but there's no systematical order to put it into music history and to be to have a knowledge about the social circumstances in which those women lived, in which those women worked, and to know nearly nothing about the reception. And it's very interesting because when I began to work about women's work in music, I was always told there was the 19th century and the women wasn't allowed to do anything in public, and the women couldn't go on stage. There were no possibility for women to be professional musicians. And I worked and I worked, and there was such a lot of musicians, female musicians in the public. There was such a lot of female composers, and today we don't know anything about them. And in my books, for example, there's a very old dictionary which was published in 1993, and you have it in 1919, this one, and we have it in Germany until today. It's the Riemann. We always look in it. And the Riemann from 1919 has such a lot of women and of women composers. We never knew anything about them today, and they are no longer in this dictionary. They are just erased. And that's the point where Mugi starts. Mugi is looking for all those people. And you can see here an old surface of Mugi from 2004 to 2014. You can see that there is also a sheet of the calendar for every woman every day. You can see the encyclopedia articles on the left. You can see that you can search for the time they lived, for, of course, the alphabet in which they are listed, and so on. Today, it's just on ice because we are doing a completely new system in the underground. So we are forming a completely new background in the very deep database. In fact, we are constructing a new database for it because it was a homemade system, and today we need the contacts to archives, to libraries, and so on. So for the big context, we needed a new system, and it's under construction, and we hope that we were getting online April, May this year. So we are nearly ready to have a new system. I wanted to show you, if I get there, for example, like it looks inside. I think I need to have a new Can you see it? Yes, I hope so. This, for example, is a colleague of mine, Renate Bernstein, who was for a long time professor of composition at the Conservatory and University of Music in Hamburg. And you can see there how Mugi is done. You have the article of her, then you have listening, you have a form of partition or music, sheet music, and you have the possibility to see how she writes herself in an autograph. That's the partition, and that's the possibility to hear. I hope you will hear it. I'm going, as you hear me. Sorry, I wanted to stop it and to go back to the article. Here it is. To all those biographical sketches, which are normally have the input of original research, there are always, from the beginning, has each biographical article was accompanied by a collection of material. It serves as repository for sources, including photos, pictures, documents, letters, sheet music, video, sound examples, and interviews. For further research materials and references, such as finding ads of archival holdings and estate created especially for Mugi, and as well as publication option for outstanding academic and qualification theses and other academic writings that have been produced on the respective female musician. The possibility of creating a source and research data repository for each female musician with a biographical article is currently gaining considerable importance in the humanities. This collection of material will be further expanded and systemized in the coming years. I show you just an example for her. You see, there is an interview with her. There are further acoustical examples. And there you have the text in Brazil, you have the text in German, and you could also, or we could also get some photos of it, we could get some posters of it. All this can be added in this database, and we will make a big research project, I hope, to see how all these materials, or how the possibility to publish these materials with a biographical sketch, how this will change the biographical writings. That's the question for Mugi in the next years, I think. What are we doing with all those materials? And it's really a big question in humanities that for today, at these big open source databases, we are really hold on to publish our sources and not only the the Ergebnisse. Not only what we find out, but really the sources in which we found it out. I lost my presentation and I don't know why, but I hope I will find it. Yes, there it is. Now, though this is Mugi Today, Mugi International, we have a lot of English translated articles in the meanwhile. We hope that we can get more of it. And we hope what we not have at the moment, that one day we really can publish in English, in Spain, in French, and originally. That means that we don't switch between translations, but to get articles in different languages and to publish them in their own language. For English, for the English language, we are beginning with this in the new Mugi, and I hope we will get forward in other languages. Female musicians, besides Hildegard von Bingen, Constante Mozart, Clara Schumann, Fanny Hensel, and all those names you know. For Mugi, it was really a great question to see all those female musicians which didn't get famous, but who lived a whole life very oftenly as a teacher of piano, as a teacher of singers, as someone who made music in salons, as someone who made in drawing rooms, who made music or who founded music in their own home. And we were beginning with, for example, those things. In the 19th century, at the Leipzig University of Music or Conservatory of Music, which was founded in 1843 by Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, you can see the student numbers. Between 1843 and 1868, there were 975 male students and 445 female students. From 1868 to 1893, it was half by half between female and male. And from 1893 to 1918, there were more female students than male students. And now the questions begin, because where are all the female musicians? In the public. And we have the same situation nearly today, at least at Germany. We have about half to half, even a little bit more female musicians at the conservatories, which gets professional, or should get professional musicians, but where are they? And this picture you can see here, it's nearly similar in the at the end of 19th century for Paris, for Prague, for Vienna, and I don't know if for Madrid would be the question, if it is similar to that. But it's the starting point to say we need to make female musicians seen, because they are somewhere. They got a professional academic, they studied at an academic institution. I was looking for them, one for another, for another, for another. And for example, you can see here Jenny Blauhut, who studied, in fact, at the Conservatory of Music in Leipzig. She was born the 30th of April 1862 in Leipzig. We don't know anything about her after When she died, for example, I've until today, no idea when she died. She got a very good report or very good certificate. And you can see here, for example, the entry in the inscription book of Leipzig, where we know when she is born. We know when she started to study at the 14th April of 1882. We know that her father was Ferdinand Blauhut. He's a Kaufmann, a merchandise from Leipzig. And we see a little bit where she lived and so on, and that she left the conservatory at 1885. This was her certificate. That's the same. We know where and with whom she studied. It's, for example, you can see here Karl Reinecker. I don't know if he is known outside of Germany. In Germany, he's a sort of famous composer. He composed, for example, Undine for flute and piano. And for that, he's very known in Germany. And you see that she really studied theory of music and composition. Someone told here that she was a very good composer, some of her teachers. She studied pianoforte, no violoncello, but organ and ensemble and music history. And for me, it's very interesting that, for example, in the 1880s, we have a nearly exact disciplines musicians studied like today. So there's no change about 120 years in the structure of a conservatory of music. You have music history, you have theory of music, you have ensemble, you have your main topic, and so on. Italian for singers, of course. Here you can see Italian language, even that was similar to today. This one I'm going around. It's Deutschlands Tonkünstlerinnen, so female musicians of Germany. Published in 1893, and it was a book for the big exposition in Chicago in 1893, where there was a women's building at the fair. And in the women's building, there were exponated, for example, from all countries, women. And she was one of the exponated women as a composer in Chicago, 1893. She wasn't there herself, but she is in the book for Chicago. I'm going on. You can see here one of the famous journals of Germany from 1908, Musikalisches Wochenblatt, so a weekly journal for musicians. And you can see all the advert, and you see her here as a pedagogy of music for piano and singing in Leipzig, Albertstraße 52. Though you can see from all those adverts around 10 or 20 years that she was constantly in her profession as a professional musician. You can see here another example of an exposition. There's written the House of Women on the World Fairs for books and graphical considerations, Leipzig 1914. And you see her here with some piano pieces and some songs, for example. So she's seen, but we don't know anything about her today. Nothing at all. But in her time, she needs to be famous because she's an all world's fair in Chicago and in Leipzig. This is the article I wrote for Mugi, and there you can see really the compositions. There's just an idea of what she composed. I know really nothing. In fact, 5 or 6 compositions I could find. The curiosity. That's all for Jenny Blauhut for the moment. And I was asked for a curiosity, and I tried just to make it in some little phrases. My curiosity was Eunich Stockhausen, a pianist who worked until the Nazis took place in Germany. She was, I think her father was Jewish, if I'm not wrong. And she lived in Germany. She needed to stop her profession. And I founded her as a musician until 1934, and then she disparated. And someday, Werner Grünzweig, who is the leader of the Akademie der Künste, Academy of Arts in Berlin, told me that he looked at the internet and he found my article because he had a very strange telephone call. And there was someone who called him from a, deponie, where you put all your papers, all the papers of the which are thrown away. Deponie, do you know that? No. Okay, so rubbish, in fact, rubbish deponie. And there was someone who called him, and he told him he has found this. That's I have had the word. I found the word. The ammunition box. And in it, there were a lot of papers and photographies of Eunich Stockhausen, where the whole life was documented. And it seems that someone, or she herself, put all those things in the ammunition box. And someday someone looked for a new house, found it, and threw it away. And someone on this rubbish deponie said, "That's interesting. I'm calling Werner Grünzweig in Berlin." And that's really a great story around Mugi, I think. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
So thanks, Silke, for your abstract about the work and the amazing work you do in Mugi. I don't know if there is any question from the audience, but if not, I have some curiosities I want to ask you. Because Mugi is one of the first projects to be published in the net on the internet, and maybe one of the first projects to be available in Europe. I want to know, what do you think about these great encyclopedias we have, like the Oxford Music Online is our main manual where we go when we have to find something or someone. And do you think it's enough updated, and how do you interact with this kind of encyclopedias? Because I think one important step of all the 3 works you are presenting here is the exchanges we can make or not, because maybe they are not open to make these changes into their content. So I would like to know if you have the chance to interact with the scientific committees of this kind of encyclopedias, and what do you think as a musicologist to the updating of this content in terms of including women?
I think we could. we could exchange with them, but I think the interest is another one in Mugi. It's not the interest to get the big names, and it's not the interest, not first of all, but the interest is really to find something about the social circumstances in which women worked. And that's another question than to find people for people, women for women. We are taking this way because it forces us to be exact in what we are saying and what we are thinking. But the first thing is really the ask for gender roles, the ask for circumstances of lives. And for example, I was very impressed by one student of Leipzig I found one day, Luisa Haufe, where you really can, she was the wife of Hertel, Breitkopf and Hertel of Leipzig. Probably you know it from the partitions. And she studied at Leipzig Conservatory, and she was the daughter of a very poor musician, just a town musician in Halle. And you have every semester, she began from the beginning to get, I don't have the money to continue on studying. I'm looking for half a year out of studying, and then I will re-begin. And you have really a big map of correspondence between her father and the conservatory and herself to get the money to study. And that's very impressive if you're reading this, because you see the parallels for today and you see what it really meant for circumstances. So for us, it's much more important to get the context to the national biography, and we have it for the Neue Deutsche Biographie. To get the context is for archives, and so on, then for MGG or Grove or Oxford. I think they will come behind, and then we see.
Yeah, sure. They should, they should go behind you, because all of you make an amazing work discovering the women's composer and this context, women composer and performers too, because you also speak about the Royal Society of Female Musicians, which impressed me a lot, because I don't have any notion about this kind of, maybe Sakira can illuminate this, but I don't have any notion about women association in terms of music in Spain. But I think this is very interesting, because they were like making themselves important in this I will see, in this kind of job as a musician. So they were recognizing themselves and asking for recognition for being a musician. So I think it was amazing. I don't know if after that, because you mentioned this society, I understood if is from 1839, if I understood well. But did you find other association of this kind after this or before? Could you explain a little more? Because for me it was fascinating, the imagining women joining with musical purposes as workers. And I think it's related also with the suffragist movement and the suffragettes. And I think it's kind of interesting. I would like you to speak a little more, if you could, about this association.
Yes, there are a lot of the female, so the Royal Association of Female Musicians was the parallel to the Royal Association of Musicians. And it was really a fund, first of all, for their members. But then in 1911, I think, there was the Society of of Women Musicians, which was founded as well in London. And then you have the great and big composers like Rebecca Clark, Lisa Lehman, and all the others. And for me, all the papers are at the Royal College in the archive, and I saw them some years ago. Gabriela probably know the big archive in the downstairs in the Royal College of Music, and there are all papers to the Society of Women Musicians, and the founding documents, and also a lot of letters. And there you can, for example, see that really in 1928, I think 29, a lot of members of the Royal of this Society of Female Musicians tried to get a place in the BBC orchestra, in the new founded BBC orchestra. And for me, it's very interesting that even in the 1930s, women told the conductors, we are here and we want to have a certain place in the orchestras. That's really astonishing when we are thinking that 100 years later, and even 110 years later, we are discussing about really the same things. And in Germany, you had the GEDOC, that was an organization for creative women, which was founded as well, I think, in 1911. And I'm nearly sure that when we are looking around Europe, there must be parallel organizations in Paris, in Madrid, and somewhere else. I'm sure. We just don't look about them because we think there's nothing. No, female musicians tries between 200 years to say we are here. That's really distressing.
Yeah, in fact, I think maybe 110 years later, as you said, we are discussing the same ideas because it seems like this invisibilization of women is joined in some way to the subjects we teach, because the scholar structure hasn't changed. The topics we teach hasn't changed from 19th century. I think it's as you point out, the subjects are more like the same, the Italian thing, and we are studying all the same, just maybe adding new technologies, if you want to say like that. But the topics and the insight of the subject, the core of its subject, I think is much more the same. I don't know, what do you think about it? But I think it's kind of related. And this excuse that we are given when we ask about, hey, what about women, is like women were forbidden to do anything with music, and we stop researching a little more because we believe this kind of forbidden. Of course, they were forbidden to do something, but as an act of disobedience, they did it, and they make their own association or orchestras. So I don't know, what do you think about this kind, if it's related, this invisibilization, to the subject, the core of the subjects we are teaching in schools? Because schools, universities, it's all the same when we speak about music.
Yes. What is for me really, I tried to show it at the certificate of 1818. For me, it's even broader, the subject. The subject for me is that in a very special way, the studying music stopped at 1880, and we are doing the same we did in 1880. In the form, however, we are teaching music, in the form what is done on the stages. And that's really, I think it would be time for a change in this. Even if I really, really, really like to hear Beethoven and Bach and Brahms, it's not the question. Yes, I don't want to miss them, but I think it could be a little bit broader. and a little bit more diverse, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, because as Gabriela said, we are listening or studying or performing always men and white men, because the racial thing is on the another diversity we are forgetting, and we are not paying attention to that. And I think why we resist to change subjects or the content of the subject and the structure of this material we are giving to students, not by diminishing the composers like Wagner, Beethoven. They are all necessary, but why don't we include their diversity or their variety of why don't include women? It seems like we are betraying the tradition. It's like the tradition says, the great musicologists, white men said you have to study this, but it seems like we are betraying, and I think it's related with the word Shakira said, because it's like, hey, why don't you include men? And she said, why should I? See, if you didn't get angry when I didn't include women, and now you ask about men when we are broadening our vision. So I think it's kind of illuminating. So if you agree, maybe Shakira can start now. She will speak in Spanish, but I'm sure you can follow. And if not, you can make your own questions in English and we'll translate. But she has very interesting things to say in the Spanish field, as she is one of the pioneers in making a map, which is very necessary for the Spanish musicology. So Shakira, if you want. You have to switch on your microphone because it's switched off.
¿Ya? ¿Se me escucha y se me ve y todo?
Sí.
Nada, en primer lugar, bueno, agradecerte la invitación, Elsa, en representación de la Universidad de Granada y del Departamento de Historia y Ciencias de la Música, a estas jornadas con dos mujeres referentes que es todo un orgullo para mí poder compartir este rato con ellas y aprender de su experiencia. Por supuesto, agradecer también la presencia de todas las personas que han querido escucharnos este ratito, y espero que mi charla, mi presentación sea de vuestro interés. Los puntos que voy a abordar, los temas que voy a tratar son los siguientes: cuál ha sido el origen del mapa, cómo surgió este proyecto, la repercusión que ha tenido, tanto nacional como internacional, cuál ha sido el proceso de elaboración, los pasos que he seguido para poder construir este mapa de compositoras. Luego un apartado que considero importante bajo mi punto de vista porque es el de las fuentes que he utilizado para poder hacerlo. Después pasaré a describir el mapa, a entrar en profundidad en las compositoras que pueblan todo el globo. Y por último os contaré qué espero humildemente de este proyecto. Como he contado en otras ocasiones, este mapa, que contiene de momento a 500 compositoras de todos los tiempos y distribuidas por todo el mundo, nació en medio de la pandemia mundial. Pasados ya unos meses de su nacimiento, todavía no me explico cómo pude concentrarme en elaborar este proyecto teniendo en cuenta pues, la situación que estábamos viviendo en España y en todo el mundo, ¿no? Como es la pandemia por el coronavirus. Pero creo que precisamente por eso, por tratar de distraerme y no estar todo el día pensando en la terrible tragedia que nos rodeaba, decidí volcarme en este trabajo. También es cierto que por cierres de bibliotecas, de archivos y demás, la tesis doctoral se me paralizó. Entonces, durante esos meses encontré el tiempo necesario para llevar a cabo o materializar este proyecto que ya hacía mucho tiempo que me rondaba en la cabeza, porque aunque el mapa surgiera y lo compartiera en julio, mi preocupación por visibilizar a las mujeres compositoras viene de mucho antes. Acabado el grado superior de musicología en mi conservatorio, en el Conservatorio Superior de Música de Valencia, me di cuenta de que jamás había estudiado a ninguna compositora. De hecho, recuerdo que cuando hablábamos de alguna mujer en las asignaturas de Historia de la Música, siempre fue como aquella mujer musa que inspiraba a los grandes compositores para crear las grandes obras del canon, ¿no? De la música clásica. También reflexioné sobre mi formación en el grado profesional de flauta travesera y no toqué ni una sola obra compuesta por una mujer, ni tampoco las estudié durante las asignaturas de historia, ni las analicé en las asignaturas de análisis. Lo mismo me pasó cuando reflexioné sobre los conciertos en los que había tocado y a los que había asistido como público, que tampoco había tocado ni había escuchado ninguna composición de mujer. Y por último, tampoco tenía el recuerdo de haber escuchado en la radio o de haber comprado algún CD en el que hubiera música compuesta por mujeres. Lógicamente, esta es mi experiencia, ¿no? Durante mi formación musical, y esto no quiere decir que a todo el mundo o a todo el alumnado haya crecido con esta ausencia, pero en mi caso fue significativo porque marcó mi carrera y desde entonces sabía que quería dedicar mis esfuerzos en investigar sobre esto. Así que, frente a esta situación, decidí formarme al respecto y tratar de investigar a ver si es que no existían mujeres que se hubieran dedicado a la composición, porque es que al final era la única explicación que encontraba a no haber sabido nada de ellas durante todo este tiempo, durante toda mi formación. Y como es evidente, descubrí que compositoras ha habido siempre, desde los inicios de la historia hasta la actualidad, pero que todas esas mujeres, por el simple hecho de ser mujeres, quedaron silenciadas y enterradas, ¿no? Un acto completamente injusto. Así que, como os decía, durante el estado de alarma decidí crear la playlist de la que hablamos antes, con el nombre Creadoras de la Historia de la Música, con 100 obras de 100 compositoras, ordenadas cronológicamente. Mi sorpresa vino cuando la compartí en Twitter, que es la red social que más utilizo, y de repente tuvo mucha repercusión por parte de mis seguidores y de mis seguidoras. O sea, no imaginaba que una simple lista de reproducción iba a llamar tanto la atención y que me iban a agradecer que les hubiera descubierto a tantas compositoras. En ese momento entendí que una playlist no era suficiente, porque al final solo tienes una pequeña muestra de lo que 100 compositoras crearon. No puedes saber nada más de ellas, ni de su vida, ni de su catálogo. Y a mí como musicóloga, y ya se ha hablado durante estas jornadas, me parece esencial conocer algunos datos de su vida o del entorno sociocultural de la persona que está creando música. Así que me puse manos a la obra en lo que ha sido el resultado final. Tenía claro que debía ser una herramienta digital, que cualquiera pudiera usarla desde su dispositivo móvil y en cualquier lugar, evitándonos tener que esperar a llegar a casa y conectar el ordenador, o sin necesidad de tener que comprar libros, la mayoría descatalogados o muy caros, para hacer algún tipo de consulta. Por lo que creé un mapa interactivo que podéis encontrar en el enlace que veis abajo de la diapositiva, svmusicology.com. Y nada, en él plasmé primero a esas 100 compositoras de la playlist en su lugar de nacimiento y que he ido actualizando semanalmente hasta las 500 compositoras que tiene a día de hoy. Del mismo modo, la playlist también la he ido actualizando, incluyendo la música de esas 500, bueno, no de las 500 compositoras, porque no todas tienen su música colgada en Spotify, y nada, reúne 444 de las 500. Una vez lanzó este mapa y en cuestión de 6 meses me quedo perpleja de ver que tanto medios nacionales como internacionales se hayan hecho eco de mi proyecto, un proyecto que en principio iba a ser para mí, para mi alumnado o para mis amigos, mi familia y poco más, ¿no? Desde programas de radio hasta revistas de música como periódicos o incluso el Museo de la Música de Barcelona, que utilizó la playlist para una exposición dedicada a la mujer en la música, o incluso la cantante Zahara, que me citó en una de sus clases en la última edición de Operación Triunfo. Cosas surrealistas que no me esperaba en absoluto, pero que son de agradecer, porque al final no importa tanto quién lo ha hecho, sino qué es lo que ha hecho. Y con esta difusión hemos conseguido que los 500 nombres que tiene el mapa de alguna manera hayan resucitado y que estén presentes en los medios de comunicación, en escuelas, academias, institutos y universidades de todo el mundo. Además, gracias a las estadísticas internas del mapa, puedo ver incluso en tiempo real cuánta gente entra a consultarlo. Y los datos del mes de febrero, por poneros un ejemplo, son los siguientes. Lógicamente el mayor número de usuarios y usuarias pertenece a España, pero claro, me parece increíble también que reciba visitas de países como México, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela o Estados Unidos. Además, las visitas crecen exponencialmente semana tras semana. Como podéis observar, la primera semana de febrero entraron unos 300 usuarios y usuarias, la segunda semana se duplicaron, pasando los 600, la tercera semana lo visitaron más de 800 personas y por último el mes se cerró con la visita de 900 personas. Además, todos esos usuarios y usuarias le otorgaron casi 2.000 visitas, lo que supone una muy buena noticia porque implica que la gente se está interesando en las compositoras, algo que por desgracia no es demasiado habitual. Si hablamos del mes de marzo, como ya comentábamos antes, donde todo el mundo se acuerda misteriosamente de las mujeres, pues la cosa se dispara muchísimo. Aquí podéis observar la locura que ha sido el 8 de marzo y los días que lo rodean. El 6 de marzo lo visitaron 200 personas, que está bien, 200 personas está bien, el 7 unas pocas más, 237, y el día 8 fue una barbaridad porque lo visitaron más de 3.000 personas. Una vez pasó el boom del Día de la Mujer, el día 9 lo consultaron 700 personas y el día 10 400. Lógicamente es una alegría y una muy buena noticia que haya ese interés por visitar el mapa y otros recursos, ¿no? Y en definitiva, pues bueno, yo entiendo que al cuerpo docente les dé gozo descubrir compositoras a su alumnado o a tu público si estás ofreciendo una ponencia de género o de innovación educativa y lo pones como ejemplo. Pero claro, lo ideal sería que ese interés, como hablábamos, estuviera presente todos los días del año y no solo para conmemorar una fecha concreta como es el 8 de marzo, porque con ello no vamos a lograr el cambio, no vamos a conseguir la igualdad y que todas las mujeres de la historia de la música estén integradas junto a los colegas hombres, que pienso que esa debería ser nuestra aspiración, ¿no?, en nuestro trabajo. Una vez os he puesto más o menos en antecedentes, os voy a explicar cuáles son las características principales del mapa y cómo lo he elaborado. Este proyecto está enmarcado dentro de lo que se conoce como la musicología feminista. La musicología feminista es una disciplina que nace en torno a los años 70 y que surgió por la necesidad de reivindicar la figura de la mujer en la música. Primero, rescatando del olvido a todas esas mujeres que no aparecen en nuestros manuales de historia de la música, como si jamás a ninguna mujer se le hubiera ocurrido cantar, tocar un instrumento, componer, dirigir o enseñar. Y después tratando de incorporar todas esas figuras en el relato de la historia. O en otras palabras, darles el lugar que se merecen junto a todos los hombres que ya conocemos. En este mapa solo he incluido compositoras porque quería romper un poco con la falacia que ha sobrevivido hasta muy recientemente de que las mujeres no componían música clásica porque no sabían, porque no estaban concebidas biológicamente para llevar a cabo una tarea de raciocinio como la composición. Lógicamente esto no es cierto y quería demostrarlo de alguna manera. Por supuesto, debido a la marginación que ha recibido la mujer, no solo en el ámbito de la música, sino en cualquier otro, sería fantástico que surgieran mapas en todas las disciplinas y dentro de la música, pues de directoras, de intérpretes, de cantantes, pedagogas, musicólogas, porque también hace falta. Siguiendo con esto, el estilo compositivo de las 500 creadoras que aparecen en el mapa pertenece a lo que consideramos o llamamos música clásica o música culta, porque al fin y al cabo es mi especialidad, es donde considero que trabajo mejor. Evidentemente hay infinidad de creadoras de todos los estilos, pero claro, crear un mapa en el que aparezcan todas las compositoras de todos los estilos sería inabarcable para mí, entonces me he ceñido a lo que es mi especialidad. Otra de las características de este mapa es que es sonoro, es decir, de las 500 compositoras proporciono un enlace hacia su música. Esto, por un lado, es un poco injusto porque, creo que lo comentabas, Elsa, hay muchísimas compositoras de las que no se ha grabado todavía su música porque hasta muy recientemente, como os he comentado, no ha habido ese interés por estudiarlas ni reivindicarlas. Pero claro, quería asegurarme que de todas ellas pudiéramos escuchar o descubrir, aunque fuera pincelada, de su producción musical, porque este proyecto al final está pensado para que sea sobre todo una herramienta pedagógica, que sirva a docentes para descubrir música compuesta por mujeres al alumnado. Y en ese sentido, proporcionar solo nombres a los alumnos y alumnas no sé hasta qué punto sería atractivo para ellos. Una vez tecleamos svmusicology.com, viajamos por todo el globo y si pinchamos en cualquiera de ellas nos encontramos una ficha individual como la que veis en la diapositiva. En esa ficha proporciona las fechas de nacimiento y de muerte, si procede, y siempre y cuando se haya conservado, o en el caso de las compositoras actuales, que me haya podido poner en contacto con ellas para que me proporcionen esa información. Aparecen también unas líneas con algunos aspectos reseñables de su biografía, el enlace de su página web si tienen, o de Wikipedia si tienen, por si en un vistazo el usuario o usuaria quiere conocer un poco más a esa compositora, el enlace hacia su música, los botones de compartir en redes sociales y la herramienta de búsqueda, que también es muy interesante porque permite localizar a una compositora por nombre, por ubicación o por franja temporal. Y por último, tiene también el botón de donar porque este proyecto lo estoy sustentando yo misma, no recibe ningún apoyo institucional que lo soporte, ¿no? Así que añadí este botón por si alguna persona, algún docente que lo está utilizando o algún melómano o melómana lo encuentra de utilidad y quiere hacer su pequeña aportación para que esta herramienta dure en el tiempo. Pero ¿cómo he hecho todo esto? ¿Cómo he construido el mapa? Pues he creado una base de datos como la que veis en pantalla. De cada una de las compositoras voy completando la siguiente información: el continente en el que nació, en qué ciudad específicamente, sus fechas de nacimiento y de muerte, su nombre, la obra que proporciono en la ficha para su escucha, su enlace de la plataforma de reproducción, el enlace de su página web, la descripción que irá en su ficha y las etiquetas de los aspectos más reseñables de esa compositora. Si componía bajo un seudónimo masculino, si ha compuesto óperas, si su catálogo se distingue por las bandas sonoras, por las canciones, etc. Al final, esta base de datos solo es una compilación de lo que se reflejará posteriormente en cada una de las fichas de las compositoras. Respecto a mi proceso de trabajo, es el siguiente. Reúno en otra base de datos los nombres de todas las compositoras que voy descubriendo y que me van recomendando, porque la verdad es que este proyecto, aunque lo he lanzado yo misma y lo estoy llevando a cabo sola, también se nutre de las recomendaciones que me van haciendo, sobre todo en el ámbito extranjero. Hay personas de otros países que contactan conmigo y que me dicen: oye, soy de Chile y aquí tenemos esta figura súper relevante en el ámbito de la composición, por ejemplo. Siempre lo he mencionado, pero lo hago una vez más. Aprovecho para agradecer a todas esas personas que se ponen en contacto conmigo para decirme: oye, aquí falta tal compositora, porque si no fuera por todas esas personas, lógicamente todavía habría más vacíos en el globo. De hecho, estoy trabajando para incorporar en el mapa una sección de agradecimientos donde aparezcan por nombre y apellido todas esas personas que en algún momento han puesto su granito de arena, ¿no? que me han ayudado a realizar este. Después de compilar los nombres, hago la correspondiente investigación y documentación de cada una de las autoras, porque cuando yo compilo los nombres no sé a priori si se ajustan a las características del mapa, entre otras cosas si componen música clásica, por ejemplo. Cuando esa investigación está hecha, las autoras pasan por otro filtro. ¿Sobrevive su música? Si es que sí y puedo proporcionar un enlace hacia su escucha, solo me queda redactar el pequeño extracto de biografía que aparecerá en la ficha, buscar una foto suya y lanzarlas al servidor para que aparezcan en el mapa. Todo este proceso, que a priori puede parecer sencillo y fácil de hacer, pues realmente no lo es, porque tengo que leer mucho, estudiar mucho, discernir entre aquellas informaciones contradictorias que puedes encontrar de cada una de ellas, localizar el retrato correcto de cada compositora y, en fin, también ponerme en contacto con las compositoras en activo para darles opción a ellas mismas de proporcionarme la información que consideren. Es fundamental, por tanto, que llegados a este punto os hable de las fuentes que he utilizado para la elaboración del mapa, porque, como os decía anteriormente, yo no he descubierto a 500 compositoras de la nada. Yo he recurrido a todas o casi todas las fuentes bibliográficas existentes del ámbito de la musicología feminista que rescatan los nombres de esas mujeres que no encontramos habitualmente como músicos en nuestro día a día. Es muy importante justificar siempre de dónde sacamos la información de los proyectos que llevamos a cabo, bien sea en un trabajo de clase, en un artículo publicado, en una red social si te la piden, o en un proyecto interactivo como este. Así que, dicho esto, y para no aburriros demasiado, os voy a presentar en primer lugar algunas de las fuentes bibliográficas que he empleado, pero agrupadas por categorías y resumidas, porque si no esto sería interminable. Además, seguramente conozcáis todas o casi todas. Las primeras son las fuentes bibliográficas propias de la musicología feminista y las que hablan específicamente de la historia de las mujeres en la música. O dicho de otro modo, las fuentes que podemos englobar dentro de lo conocido como historia contributiva, cuyo objetivo es recuperar a compositoras o intérpretes que no aparecen en la historia canónica. Algunas de las primeras fuentes de este ámbito, que seguramente ya conoceréis, son las tres que aparecen en pantalla: Feminine Endings de Susan McClary, Gender and the Musical Canon de Marcia Citron y Música, Género y Educación de Lucy Green. En el ámbito nacional, Quiero destacar en primer lugar las mujeres en la música porque, aunque Patricia Atkins es inglesa, el apartado dedicado a las compositoras españolas es de gran valor y está escrito por la compositora vasca María Luisa Zaita. También el libro Música y Mujeres, Género y Poder, editado por la compositora Marisa Manchado, que es esencial porque recoge artículos pioneros en España de esta temática, y una obra de referencia como es Feminismo y Música de Pilar Ramos. También he utilizado catálogos, enciclopedias y diccionarios que nos proporcionan muchísimos nombres y unas líneas biográficas de cada una de ellas. Los principales que he utilizado son los dos que muestro en pantalla, aunque lógicamente hay algunos más. El Negrove Dictionary, Women Composers, que recogerá unas 800 compositoras, creo, más o menos, pero que casi no cita a compositoras españolas, y de ahí que muestre a la derecha el catálogo español de compositoras españolas, que es una fuente valiosísima y que podéis descargar gratuitamente en internet desde la página web del INAEM, del Instituto Nacional de Artes Escénicas y de la Música. Otro apartado son las biografías de creadoras, libros específicos de cada una de ellas que nos hablan de su vida, de su obra, y es muy enriquecedor conocerlas en profundidad porque nos ofrecen una perspectiva temporal muy interesante. Otra fuente pertinente es acudir a las antologías de partituras por dos motivos. El primero, porque ahí siempre puedes descubrir a compositoras que hasta ese momento no conocías, y el segundo motivo, porque puedes interpretar esa música, puedes devolverla a la vida y ponerla encima de la mesa como un repertorio válido que por desgracia no suele interpretarse o no tanto como debería. Por supuesto, otros recursos valiosísimos son los que encontramos en la red, sobre todo para esa primera parte del proceso de crear el mapa, la recopilación de nombres de compositoras. La base de datos Oxford Music Online, el portal de partituras MSLP o la web en la que participa nuestra compañera, la ponente Silke Wenzel Movie. También hay asociaciones nacionales e internacionales que ponen a nuestra disposición mucha información sobre compositoras. La que creo que tenemos más cerca es la de Mujeres en la Música, que además organiza conferencias y seminarios muy interesantes y son bastante activas en redes sociales. Y bueno, luego hay muchas asociaciones de compositoras por comunidades autónomas y también del extranjero que sería interesante pegarles un vistazo. Y por supuesto, no nos podemos olvidar de las redes sociales y el peso tan grande que tienen en nuestro día a día. No solo sirven para que perdamos mucho el tiempo y casi sin darnos cuenta en ellas, sino que son un arma fascinante para aprender si se utilizan bien. En el mundo de Instagram tenemos la cuenta de Aine, Acompasadas, que hace una labor de divulgación muy chula y de manera amena nos acerca a las mujeres en la música, sobre todo a las de nuestros días y de géneros populares que estamos hartas de consumir en la radio sin percatarnos bien de todo lo que trasciende de esa música. También en Instagram debo hacer mención obligada a la cuenta de Gabriela, Don't Women Music, porque fue una de las primeras que conocí y que me inspiraron y me demostraron que hacía falta recursos como estos para visibilizar a las mujeres en la música. Luego en Twitter tenemos a la pianista Elisa Rapado, el programa de radio Hacedoras de Música de Argentina, la cuenta de Pilar Rius, que es la presidenta de la Asociación Mujeres en la Música, a Fabiana Sanz, que lleva la sección Mulierum de la revista Melómano, a Blanca Salas, que también hace una labor increíble de recuperación y difusión de las mujeres en la música clásica y escribe sobre ello en la revista Codalario. Después en Facebook también tenemos algunas páginas que nos comparten información sobre compositoras, como la primera de ellas, Música escrita por mujeres, o la página de la Red de Compositoras Latinoamericanas. Y si después de esta charla no os he aburrido demasiado, pues a mí también podéis encontrar en Twitter y en Instagram con el usuario Century Musicology y a mis publicaciones en las revistas Ritmo y Platea Magazine. No quiero olvidarme tampoco del hecho de que algunas de las compositoras con las que me he puesto en contacto para elaborar sus fichas del mapa han sido increíblemente generosas por recomendarme a otras compositoras, hablándome maravillas de ellas y diciéndome que sí o sí debían aparecer también en este proyecto. Hecho que nos demuestra que esas tonterías de que las mujeres nos chafamos las unas a las otras, que no somos generosas, no reconocemos nuestro trabajo, pues es falso, ¿no? Un caso fue el de Jimena Martínez, compositora argentina, que le dijo a otra compositora argentina, Valeria Romero, que se pusiera en contacto conmigo para que la incluyera en el mapa. O la compositora Raquel García Tomás, Premio Nacional de Música 2020, que me recomendó a Irene Badaro y a Jessica Carter. Por último, también poner en valor a todos aquellos intérpretes que dedican parte de su repertorio o su repertorio entero a descubrir o darle vida a estas obras que injustamente pertenecen en el olvido, ¿no? Esta diapositiva, lógicamente, es solo una muestra, porque por suerte cada vez hay más y estudiando su repertorio también podemos descubrir a nuevas compositoras. Si os parece, podemos bucear un poquito en el mapa y explorar a esas compositoras que aparecen a través de los siglos y por continentes, que por supuesto no aparecen todas las que han existido y existen. Las que hay en el mapa es solo una representación y a partir de julio seguiré actualizándolo e incluyendo a todas las compositoras que pueda. Me gusta recalcar esto porque en ocasiones cuando algún medio se ha hecho eco de este proyecto y ha querido escribir una noticia sin ponerse en contacto conmigo, han puesto titulares como todas las compositoras de la historia de la música reunidas en un solo mapa. Ojalá, pero no, es imposible y seguiré trabajando, ¿no? Pero no, en absoluto. A día de hoy sufro porque son muy pocas las que hay en el mapa, sabiendo todas las que me quedan por incluir. Entonces, siempre pido un poco de paciencia porque soy consciente además de que hay vacíos muy significativos, como es el caso de Costa Rica, que no aparece ninguna cuando hay una legión de compositoras en activo deseando estar dentro del mapa y que muy prontito lo estarán. Entonces, nada, dicho esto, en términos temporales, con esta gráfica podéis observar el progresivo aumento de compositoras conforme nos acercamos a la actualidad. Las poquitas que veis desde la antigüedad hasta el siglo XVIII no es porque no hubiera interés por componer, claro que sí. Lo que ocurre es que las mujeres lo tuvieron muchísimo más complicado que los hombres, o bien se apropiaban de sus creaciones o firmaban como anónimo, o no se han conservado sus obras o no se han grabado. Entonces, en este periodo temporal conservamos muchos nombres, pero ya no tanto sus obras. En cualquier caso, confío en que poco a poco podré ir incorporando nuevas figuras en este marco temporal. En el siglo XVIII incluyo a 34 autoras y en el siglo XIX es un despegue porque hay 112, porque es el momento en el que las mujeres poco a poco van liberándose de las restricciones sociales a las cuales estaban sometidas y paulatinamente vemos un incremento de la producción musical y de la publicación de obras con autoría de mujer. Ya en el siglo XX es un absoluto despunte con 322 compositoras. Es el siglo donde las mujeres hacen de la composición musical su oficio y encuentran menos problemas para publicar y estrenar sus obras. Algo llamativo es que he incluido una figura del siglo XXI, Alma Deutscher, de 16 años, que está considerada una niña prodigio y que os invito a que investiguéis un poco sobre ella, que no la conozca, porque es bastante curioso este caso. Si analizamos a las compositoras en función de los continentes a los que pertenecen, hay 25 compositoras asiáticas, 320 europeas, 136 americanas, 8 de África y 12 de Oceanía. Como os he dicho, el mapa representa solo un muestreo, no es la realidad absoluta. Quedan muchísimas por incluir. Pero es lógico, por otro lado, que haya sido más fácil para mí incluir a creadoras europeas porque, como os he comentado, se trata de un mapa que contempla la música clásica, música culta, música que se ha gestado principalmente en Occidente. De esta manera, en Europa, concretamente, el mayor número de compositoras son españolas, con 84 representaciones, después Reino Unido con 40 y en tercer lugar Alemania con 34. Solo voy a mencionar al top 3 en este análisis para que no sea demasiado pesado. De América aparecen 58 compositoras estadounidenses, 22 argentinas y 13 mexicanas. Respecto a Asia, el mayor número de creadoras lo tenemos en Irán, con 7 compositoras, 5 creadoras de Japón, 3 de Turquía y luego tendríamos 2 compositoras en India y otras 2 en Corea del Sur. De Oceanía tenemos una amplia mayoría en Australia con 11 compositoras frente a la única que de momento he agregado en Nueva Zelanda. Y por último, en África tenemos poquita representación con 3 autoras sudafricanas y otras 5 compositoras de 5 países diferentes. Todo esto son solo números, datos, estadísticas, gráficos. Es un análisis que, aunque me resulta útil porque me sirve para que podáis conocer qué información concreta hay dentro del mapa, no tiene vida. Así que os invito a que ahora que vivimos tantas restricciones de movilidad que nos impiden viajar y descubrir nuevos lugares, que os metáis al mapa y viajéis desde casa, que pongáis a prueba vuestra curiosidad y que cada día os propongáis descubrir nueva música de autoría de mujer que se ha compuesto en un siglo concreto, en un año concreto o en un país país determinado o en un continente. Que visitéis a todas esas compositoras de una en una y os empapéis con su música y con su vida, porque gracias a este trabajo he descubierto historias fascinantes. Yo soy la primera que está aprendiendo con todo esto y que se ha emocionado con la cantidad de historias de superación y con el talento de tantas mujeres que por el simple hecho de ser mujeres no han visto recompensado su esfuerzo y su trabajo ni en vida ni con el paso de los años. Ya respecto al futuro del mapa, esto es un proyecto en el tiempo, porque yo al principio pensaba que no iba a encontrar a más de 150 o a 200 compositoras y ya he comprobado que esto no tiene fin, afortunadamente. Es bastante duro, pero claro, es que es completamente necesario. Entonces, mis planes son, a partir de julio más o menos, que será cuando cierre otros proyectos, buscar información de alguna institución que avale este proyecto y que asegure su continuidad en el tiempo, porque hasta ahora, como os había comentado, soy yo la que está asumiendo todos los gastos que conlleva mantener una plataforma así, junto a las donaciones que algunas personas a título individual me va haciendo, pero lógicamente esto no es suficiente. Si quiero que este proyecto sobreviva, va a tener que ser con el respaldo financiero de alguna institución. Si consigo esa ayuda, pues imaginaos, ¿no? Podré dedicar mis esfuerzos casi al completo a este proyecto, además de compaginarlo con otros que tengo en marcha. A partir de ahí, me encantaría que el mapa solo fuera un reflejo de lo que está por venir, que las compositoras cada vez estén más presentes en los estudios de música a todos los niveles, que cada vez más musicólogas y musicólogos recuperemos más obras de compositoras, las publiquemos y que cada vez hayan más intérpretes que estén dispuestos a estrenarlas, porque solo así podrán programarlas en los conciertos a los que vamos habitualmente. Espero de corazón que os haya resultado interesante mi proyecto, que os haya podido descubrir alguna cosa, que os haya gustado. Y nada, muchísimas gracias por vuestra atención y si necesitáis cualquier cosa de mí, pues me podéis encontrar en las redes sociales, en mi correo electrónico y mi página web. Gracias.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Shakira. Doy fe de que sí, de que es una persona súper activa en redes. Bueno, y además ahora que está también no solo en redes, sino en todos los medios de comunicación habidos y por haber, que es un gusto encontrar que, bueno, por lo menos se va moviendo ese interés. O sea que si estáis interesados, contactad con ella porque es, ya os digo, muy, muy activa. No sé si tenemos preguntas, pero yo sí que tengo una y además es compartida para Gabriela también. Sobre, no sé, Gabriela, si te la hago en español, ¿lo entiendes? Sí, vale, aunque luego respondas en inglés, pero ¿vosotras editáis en Wikipedia las entradas de esas compositoras sobre las que trabajáis o directamente enlazáis con la información que hay, de las que imagino que haya, que no serán todas y que en algunos casos quizás sea una mínima representación, que no todas tengan entrada en Wikipedia? Entonces, ¿estáis también retroalimentando la Wikipedia?
A ver, a mí es que no me da la vida para hacer todo lo que me gustaría hacer. Sí que es verdad que cuando veo cosas que son súper llamativas, no me queda otra que tratar de editarlo. No sé qué fue exactamente de Francesca Caccini, que además mi trabajo final de carrera fue sobre ella, sobre un análisis de su ópera, y ponía una completa locura, y entonces dije, tengo que intervenir de alguna manera porque esto no puede ser, ¿no? Que hayan estas mentiras aquí. Pero de momento no he hecho nada más. Sí que es verdad que se han puesto en contacto conmigo para decirme bueno, para agradecerme que haya incluido los enlaces de Wikipedia, porque de esta manera ellos mismos se están dando cuenta de qué compositoras no tienen página y entonces quieren crearla, ¿no? Porque claro, aquí las páginas de Wikipedia no son solo de España, en la mayoría de casos tiene que ser la página de Wikipedia de su país. Y lo que me dijeron es que este verano, en agosto, tienen, no sé cómo se llama exactamente, pero tienen planteado hacer una especie de recopilación de todas esas que les faltan para poder incluirlas. Así que me pareció una muy buena iniciativa, la verdad, porque cada vez que buscas compositoras, automáticamente Google lo cambia por compositores y entonces si te metes a Wikipedia y buscas compositoras, te lo vuelve a cambiar a compositores y es súper frustrante. Entonces me alegro muchísimo de que hayan decidido dar ese paso.
I think I am a bit like Shakira. I wish I had time to do everything I would like to do. So unfortunately, I don't think I ever did any updates on Wikipedia. We are trying to create inside Donne our own Wikipedia. That's what we're trying to do with the 5,000. And now in the summer, I have some volunteers to start putting the bios inside Donne, so we have a bit more control, because Wikipedia, you never know as well, somebody might go there and change afterwards as well. But I wish I had time to do everything we want to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Y una de las, en relación con lo de que eras muy activa en redes, Shakira, había hace unas semanas un post, no recuerdo bien, pero era algo así como que criticabas que buscando información sobre una autora te habías encontrado algo así como que era guapa. Esa era la premisa, ¿no? Entonces, ¿cuántas veces os habéis enfrentado a este tipo de información, ¿no? En el que dices, voy a buscar información sobre, valga la redundancia, sobre una autora y lo que me encuentro es un comentario hacia su físico, pero ni rastro de la obra?
Es que creo que me sentó tan mal porque parece que estoy siempre enfadada, pero no es de verdad. Yo también soy feliz a veces. Me dio mucha rabia porque si hablamos, por ejemplo, de Wikipedia, que ya sabemos que puede haber alguna información un poco más banal debido a que cualquiera puede escribir ahí, lo que me dio rabia es que hay compositoras de las que solo existe una biografía de una persona que se ha encargado de recuperar su obra, que está en el idioma de esa compositora, en este caso concreto que tú me mencionas era el galés, solo está esa información y claro, empezar a leer y que todo fuera en relación a los ojos tan grandes que tenía, con esa belleza natural de rasgos españoles, cómo no, el público iba a estar encantado con ella. Es decir, toda la biografía desprendía estos tintes. Entonces, claro, me da rabia que encima de que es la única que existe y que, claro, todo el mundo va a utilizar y va a recurrir a ella, que se hable en estos términos. Lógicamente, la compositora era guapísima, pero guapa, pero de ahí a que centremos parte de su biografía a su físico y no a sus cualidades por las cuales el público quedaba embelesado con ella y los medios de comunicación siempre hablaban sobre ella, claro, es frustrante porque es que al final, y no estamos hablando de una biografía escrita hace 100 años, es una biografía escrita hace 30. Entonces son cosas que tenemos que cambiar desde ya, porque yo no he encontrado a día de hoy ninguna biografía de Schumann en el que hable de su mirada de seductor, ni de su pelazo, ni nada. Entonces, ¿por qué de ellas sí encontramos estas cosas? Yo creo firmemente que tenemos que denunciarlo, aunque, ya te digo, aunque sean obras tildadas de referencia, porque si no acabamos con estas cosas, el problema que puede salir de ahí es que los estudiantes y las estudiantes que se están formando y que consultan estos libros y que los utilizan como referencia para ir escribiendo y ir moviéndose en el mundo de la investigación, cometan los mismos errores y que nos encontremos con críticas en revistas que ya ocurre, ¿no? Sobre todo en el ámbito de las cantantes, me vas a perdonar, pero es un hecho que siempre sean comentarios de ese estilo, ¿no? De cómo iba vestida o cómo... Entonces son cosas que tenemos que atajar desde ya.
Not only singers, but now anyone, no? Female pianists or violinists, and they're criticized for what are they wearing or not wearing. It's absurd.
Female soloist, I think, is the focus on the critic when I speak about the physical appearance. I will translate to Silke just in case she can add any information. We are speaking about these books or reference works that emphasize the physical aspect of women, and sometimes when we face the research about musical production, we only have this information about if they were pretty or how they like, or the physical appearance, how they were dressed and all this stuff. And Shakira was manifesting her angerness toward this kind of issue. And
it's a bit, sorry, I just remember the story of Maria Malibran and Pauline Viardot, no? That you always feel sorry for Pauline because she was so ugly, and you go like, oh my God, how can you think that? Because you read that, oh, sadly, the other one died. But Pauline Viardot was this amazing composer, you know, genius, respected like everybody around her, and people have to mention that her sister was prettier. Oh God.
Sure, it's kind of a catastrophe. Is just this discourse, but as Agira said, is not written just 100 years ago. It's like yesterday. If you go to a concert today and you read the critic tomorrow, there is a focus on the physical aspect of the soloist women. Doesn't matter if singer, pianist, maybe singers and pianists are on the main list, violinists too, because they stand up in front of the public. But you cannot read the same in men. And the example of, I thought it was Akira when she speak about Schumann and how handsome maybe he was. But Schumann was Liszt was one of the first in this kind of fame craziness, and he was known because he cut his dog's hair and spread out among the fans because everyone was crazy about his hair. It's kind of, but it's just anecdote. You don't read in a formal biography this kind of information, which is kind of offensive because we are speaking about creativeness, about their work, but not about the body. They are not models. Maybe if they were models, we can speak about something else, but it's not just the case. It's like the eroticization of women, no matter if she composes or not. It's just the physical aspect. And I wanted to ask you, Shakira, I will make the question in Spanish. Cuando hablabas de las obras de referencia, ¿no? Y en el caso español tenemos, igual que está el Oxford, ¿no? El Oxford Music Online, a nivel internacional, nuestro caso español también está muy marcado, ¿no? Por el diccionario de hispanoamericano, ¿no? De la música, para nosotros el famoso diccionario Casares, que lamentablemente no se actualiza, ¿no? Como el Oxford Music Online, porque no está online, valga la redundancia, no es algo que se pueda actualizar todos los días. Pero, ¿qué representación tiene la mujer en ese diccionario en realidad? Porque tampoco es un diccionario, no es nuevo, pero tampoco es tan viejo, ¿no? Como a lo mejor pueden ser otros, como el que nos ha enseñado Silke, que era viejísimo, no es de 1930, es un diccionario del 92, que bueno, tiene unos años, pero no son tantos, ¿no? Y sin embargo parece que se quedan muchas cosas fuera, aunque también por yo creo esa corriente tan necesaria y tan agresiva en algunos casos, bien entendida, ¿no? Como la iniciada por Marisa Manchado, Pilar Ramos y demás.
De hecho, bueno, Casares está orgullosísimo, ¿no? Lógicamente, del diccionario, porque él mismo nos lo presentó en el máster de Granada. A ver, cada cosa, el reconocimiento que se merece. Lógicamente, es un diccionario que es súper importante en el mundo de la musicología española, tiene su peso, pero tiene muchas lagunas, muchísimas lagunas, del ámbito femenino. Cuando habla de las mujeres que hay, bueno, igual podrían haber escrito esas entradas desde otras perspectivas. Es una obra a revisar. Él nos vendió hace 3 años que eso se iba a digitalizar, os quiero decir que se iba a hacer en formato online, que se iba a revisar, que iban a agregar entradas y demás. De momento yo no sé creo que eso no se ha llevado a cabo, pero ojalá, si se lleva a cabo, que además, por otro lado, que cuenten con más musicólogas para poder participar y no solo musicólogos, porque igual de esa manera cambiaba la perspectiva y aparecían más mujeres.
Bueno, y además es que las musicólogas que participan, que hay algunas verdaderamente subversivas, ¿no? Pienso ahora en Marusa Baliñas, ni siquiera yo creo tuvieron la oportunidad de editar sobre asuntos femeninos, que quizás si se les hubiese dado la oportunidad. Bueno, ella es muy crítica además con su trabajo, porque siempre la recordaré porque critica mucho la entrada de Couplé, que para mí me sirvió mucho y me ha servido mucho a lo largo de mi trabajo, ¿no? Cuando me he ido poco por esa rama. Pero ella dice, bueno, es que yo era una becaria y esto está muy mal hecho. Creo que la autocrítica también es muy necesaria desde esa perspectiva, ¿no? Oye, pues hicimos lo que pudimos, pero quizá no era suficiente o quizá nos parecía suficiente hace casi 30 años, pero ahora ya no quizá ya no es tan maravilloso, ¿no? ¿Dónde está? Creo que hace falta mucha autocrítica, por lo menos en el caso español. En general sí, hace falta a nivel mundial, pero en el caso español también tenemos que criticarlo mucho, aunque desde las que estamos dentro también, que no siempre lo que hacemos es perfecto, ¿no? Pero bueno, ahí también tú lo remarcabas, ¿no? Y lo remarcaba yo al inicio, esa especie de vergüenza, un estigma quizá inmerecido, pero ya es un sentimiento que se te queda de decir, oye, no estaba haciendo lo suficiente. Bueno, pues pongamos solución, ¿no? Cómo podemos proponer otros modelos y ir hacia otros lugares.
Además es que creo que no nos resta valor como investigadoras volver hacia nuestros pasos y decir esto a mí me pasa al leer lógicamente trabajos de la carrera, trabajos del máster y digo esto es una basura y si lo hiciera hoy sería muchísimo mejor. Entonces no entiendo por qué personalidades del mundo de la musicología que están aquí arriba no hacen lo mismo. No le vamos a quitar valor a lo que ha hecho. Pero si hay cosas que se pueden mejorar, pues, jolín, menos mal que lo hemos reconocido y que lo vamos a hacer, porque es que solo de esa manera podemos progresar.
Claro, si al final el que es pionero en su momento, pues es pionero y merece todo nuestro reconocimiento, porque gracias a que abrió esa puerta hoy lo podemos criticar, no es decir, oye, pues esto no estaba tan bien hecho, claro, si no se hubiese hecho nada no lo podríamos criticar, partiendo de ahí. Pero siempre ir hacia adelante también requiere una mirada hacia atrás, ¿no? Y decir, bueno, ¿qué hicimos? Es el famoso estado de la cuestión, que tan dentro de la investigación, que tanto nos dan la brasa a los doctorandos, ¿no? Sin estado de la cuestión no podemos avanzar hacia adelante, porque al final tenemos que partir de algo, es como el trampolín que nos impulsa esa célula motora. Pero bueno, tampoco os quiero entretener mucho más. Sí que me gustaría, esto lo voy a hacer en inglés también para que participe Silke ya como a modo de cierre. To end the session, I will like to know, to speak a little about your purposes for the future. What are your aspirations? So if you want to start, Gabriela, about what are your aspirations for future in relation to the project, but also in relation to your own career as a singer, as a musician, because I think it's important not to forget that you are all working in these projects, but you have also another professions as musicologists, as teachers, as singers. And I think it's important to emphasize this kind of duality that women also have to do with her own careers. When we speak about, we are promoting women, but we are also, it's like, we are not only one thing when we speak in terms of women and music. We are kind of multidisciplinaries. I think we have several issues. So what are your purposes for the future, Gabriela?
Well, singing wise, at the moment, I am hoping for the end of pandemic. So because nothing substitutes live music, especially I think in classical music. I'm very grateful to online performances or everything, but you know, for us performers is never the same. So but as I said before, I'm very lucky that in the meantime, while I'm working in my practice in concerts, which might happen, hopefully, fingers crossed, from June onwards, I can spend a lot of time also planning for future concerts. You know, as I always say, that I needed 3 lives to sing all the pieces I would like to sing, because the repertoire I keep discovering, especially with contemporary composers, which I discover almost every day. You just wish you had more time to perform everything. So that's for my personal life. And for Donne, to be honest, I think I'm a bit like Sakira. I lost patience a long time ago. I don't know how Silke feels, probably worse than all of us, because you've been doing that for much longer. But I think because we're a bit more Latin, we are a bit kind of more angry. I really admire your patience. I really don't have much patience. I don't see any point on having arguments with anyone who tries to convince me otherwise. So what I want for the project is for it to be as big as it can be, so we can annoy a lot of people and make change happen faster, because the only way change will happen is if you have, if our voices are bigger. And that's why I have no shame, and neither Sakira should have any shame, or Silky, I don't know if you need money, to ask for support, because we need organizations who actually want to make a difference. And there are lots of organizations nowadays wanting to contribute to equality and diversity. So if you want to contribute, you wouldn't find more loyal soldiers, because we've been doing for nothing. We've been doing for the inspiration. And we see the change, we see the little changes, and it's priceless. Every little change. We did a partnership with a radio station here in the UK, and because of our, my initiative to call them and to say, would you like to do that? They have introduced 30 composers, 30 women to their audiences that they never heard before in the past 2 months. We are gonna go to the 3rd month of that. And I see that as I wish it was 3,000, but I see 30 as a positive, and, lots of lovely responses on social media. The music is fantastic. There's absolutely no question there. So it's so easy for me to curate the music. So for me, the plans are just, we need to get as big as we can and create a lot more inspiration, because I think no woman, no young man in the world should be surprised when they see a woman's name anywhere anymore. We're done. That's it. I have small dreams.
Thank you, Silke. What are your future aspirations in Mugi, but also as a teacher?
Yes. For me, it's I'm thinking about that since the question 1.5 hours away. I think for me, for Mugi, there are 2 aspects. There is a political aspect, but as well just a scientific aspect. I'm really curious about women in music. I'm really curious how they got along with their career. Why does a young woman came up to stage around 1815? These are all really scientific questions and not only political questions to me. It interests me, very simple. And so I think I will going on to research biography by biography to get a found, and not only anecdotes and not only thinking about something, but to have facts. That's one thing. The other is I'm teaching musicology, music history, for example, in a talk every semester, which calls Music History International, because of course the University of Music has a very international students. And I really like it, and I'm working onwards to find formats, possibilities to let participate all students from all over the world. And I really like this work. And so the music history change every semester, and I'm looking to get a systematic approach to it, to say how can we change what we are thinking about music history, because all over the world we all learn the same music history, which of course isn't the music history, even if everyone learns it everywhere. And that's something which is for me even more important at the moment than a movie. But of course, I'm looking forward to get Mugi online again in a dynamic way, and then to have a nice database for the next 20 years, I hope so.
And Shakira, ¿cuáles son tus propósitos con...? Bueno, tú has avanzado bastante, pero estoy segura de que tienes muchos también.
Bueno, después de los que se han propuesto ellas, poco me queda que añadir. Igual en el ámbito más personal como profesora, tratar de integrar todavía más, aunque reconozco que es complicado, encontrar partituras de flauta, por ejemplo, de compositoras para mi alumnado, analizar el nivel de cada una de esas obras para poder distribuirlas por cursos. Eso más a nivel de profesorado, ¿no? Poner en práctica realmente lo que estoy diciendo, que no es ni más ni menos, no solo queremos nombres, sino que tienen que estar ahí. Esa es la finalidad. Luego, en el ámbito del mapa, estoy bastante ilusionada porque he entrado a formar parte de un proyecto de investigación de la Universidad de Oviedo de innovación docente, en el que los alumnos de musicología van a hacer prácticas con el mapa y cada año tendrán que agregar cada uno de ellos a una compositora nueva. Espero que cada vez lo tengan más complicado para poder incluirla, porque eso será una muy buena señal. Y seguir trabajando, es que no queda más. Seguir haciendo las actualizaciones, que cada vez el mapa esté más lleno de compositoras y nada, y contribuir lo máximo posible a crear conciencia, simplemente.
Ojalá algún día haya tantas fichas en el mapa que no veamos la tierra que subyace debajo del mapa, ¿no? Bueno, muchas gracias a las tres por estar hoy aquí, por compartir vuestro tiempo y vuestros conocimientos. Thanks to the three of you for staying with us today, for sharing your time and your knowledge. And just to finish, I would like to quote Virginia Woolf, because while you were speaking about women and history, it recalls me to this quote that she used to say, that for most of history, Anonymous was a woman. And thanks to your work, women and women are a little less far away from being anonymous and to have their own names. So thanks, and we'll see each other. Nos vemos otra vez el día 19 de abril, que tendremos otro encuentro, que tendremos además sobre la gestión musical, y en este caso ya me permito anunciaros que tendremos a Daniela Bosé, a Gemma del Valle y a Marisa Márquez para hablarnos del management musical. Así que muchas gracias. Thank you and see you.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. I hope you let me in the email account. Great. Thank you.